Well, rule number one, people buy what they want, not always what they need. So you got to make sure you understand the difference there. When you're past age 45, statistically, your odds go up to succeed because you've got all this expertise to build off of. You build an audience, you pay attention to them. They'll tell you what they want to buy, not directly, but they'll give you a clue. And then not only are you more likely to build something that's likely to succeed, you've got the built-in market right there. People basically in their 50s realize you've got a lot of time left. It's not time to hang it up. It's time to shift into a new gear, maybe even become a new version of yourself.
Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm all good, and I actually wanted to first thank you because when I was just a new entrepreneur in my early 20s, building my very first business, struggling to build my very first business, I would actually read Copyblogger almost on a daily basis together with my co-founder back in the days, and it was super helpful to get us started in this online business world. So I wanted to thank you publicly for that first.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because, I've been at it for a while and it's always the best part to me. Well, the money was good too, but, when people say you are how I got started with content marketing or audience first entrepreneurism or all that stuff we did 20 years ago, when we really things were changing and new ideas and all that. And now we've got publications like yours that are carrying the torch and doing a great job of it, I got to say. So thank you for carrying on.
I really appreciate that. Absolutely. Yeah, it was Copyblogger and Digital Marketer that I would read like religiously almost every day in between
That's
my
scoundrel
student
Ryan,
job.
right? He's my
Yeah.
buddy.
So Brian, you've built Copyblogger into an 8-figure company. You've built and sold multiple other successful businesses. Now, what is your main motivation and mission behind further your latest venture?
Yeah, that's a great question because when we sold the assets of Copyblogger, it happened in a couple of big transactions, and then finally I sold my remaining interest in Copyblogger, and that started in 2018, another chunk in 2019, and then 2023 is when I finally let go of Copyblogger altogether. And it was interesting to me because I think I was 51 at the time of the first acquisition, and people were like, "Oh, so you're going to retire now?" And I'm like, "No, I mean, what would I do except get in trouble if I retired?" But yeah, it hadn't really occurred to me, and I think that is in part because I enjoy what I do, and I'm also kind of driven to do things if I find a problem that is something I feel like I need to help solve. So I did take some time off. We traveled with my family around the world, and we were living in France for the fall of 2018. And I picked up a book called The Longevity Economy by Joseph Coughlin, who heads up the MIT Age Lab. And this is when I first understood about this huge demographic shift that was underway or coming, really, and it's here now, where we become basically an older society. And my own Generation X are really kind of the canaries in the coal mine here for this because we were the first ones to grow up without pensions. We only had the 401k. 401k wasn't really designed that well for a solid retirement for a lot of people. Some people, it's okay. And then, of course, the baby boomers are the richest generation in history. And all of this kind of plays into this thing where people are living longer, healthier lives while birth rates, as you've probably heard, are falling all across the world, not just in the United States.
Yeah.
So basically, the idea of the longevity economy is that we'll be an older society, and that there's a lot of implications for that, from retirement to longer careers to what we're seeing right now with entrepreneurism among 50 and 60-year-olds, because Basically, the job market, at least in the States, is kind of designed to get rid of you in your late 50s or early 60s. And yet, most Gen Xers can't afford to retire at 65, and a lot don't want to. So they're turning to starting their own businesses in order to keep going, which is Further's tagline, really, which is the idea, which is no, I don't want to retire. And on the other hand, some people can't retire. So there has to be solutions. And to me, the answer is the same as it's been for the last 25 years, which is you start your own thing, but specifically an expertise based business where you can build an audience first and succeed like I have in the past.
I read on your Substack actually that you said that people are like from Gen X are often better equipped actually to start an education-based business, maybe even than younger generations. Why do you think that that is specifically the case?
Well, that's an interesting observation because I think the entrepreneurship myth is that it's, especially when it comes to anything related to tech, is the 20 something wearing a hoodie, the Mark Zuckerberg myth. But in reality, the average age of a successful startup founder is 45.
Mm,
And most of the businesses being started right now are people slightly older than that. And I'm talking about a variety of businesses, everything from a coffee shop to a freelance business, consulting, a Substack business, what have you. So there's a whole lot of flavors here. But I think when you're a little bit older, the reason we tend to succeed at higher rates is because we've gone through some stuff, right? And
mm,
we've accumulated expertise and hopefully some wisdom along the way. So, younger people have more tolerance for risk, and I encourage them to start businesses just as much as anyone else. I just think when you're past age 45, your odds go up to succeed because you've got all this expertise to build off of. You've got uh, a network of relationships. You've got this experience navigating the business world. So that's the reason why I think statistically you're more likely to succeed when you're a little bit older.
mm. Yeah, and it's definitely an observation for us in Right Build Scale as well. I mean, my co-founders, Sinem and Philip, we're all like in our 30s, like early 30s. But most of our clients are actually like in their like late 40s, 50s, 60s, and even
Mm,
70s.
yeah,
And I remember in the beginning, we were quite unaware of that. Like we thought we were speaking maybe to our past selves, like even younger than we were. But in reality, most of our customers and clients were actually like in their 50s and 60s. And I find it very inspiring, right, to be able to work with um, people who truly have a lot of knowledge and expertise in their field, right? Maybe because of their profession that they've been doing for 20, 30 years and are
right.
now like, well, you know what? Like I'm maybe done with my full-time job or I want to supplement my retirement income and let me do this online thing. Let me try out Substack. Let me build a coaching business and education business. Um, so it's something that I find very inspiring.
Yeah, you have to also understand that 83% of household wealth, at least in the States, is controlled by people over the age of 50. And yet, at the same time, when you look at the concept of stability or security going forward with longer careers and whatnot, we're also the ones that are going to get laid off if things go south in the
Mm,
economy, which looks like it might happen at any time. So it's this weird dynamic because we can afford to invest in our own midlife reinvention, and we're also motivated to do it because we don't know what's going to happen, and you're not really able to depend on traditional employment. You really haven't been able to for decades, but I'd say with AI, the economy, and all these shifts that are going on, it's even dicier. So I think that may be fueling a lot of that interest from that age bracket.
Now, if someone wants to get started with an online business based around their knowledge and expertise, what do you recommend are the first few steps someone should take?
Yeah. So almost everyone I know, there are exceptions, of course, but almost everyone starts out as some form of client services, right? Freelancing, consulting, maybe coaching, but coaching usually generally follows one of those two. And then you move on to digital products. For example, I ended up with an 8-figure software company. I'm not a coder, but I understood my audience. I understood the use case. I was the ideal customer because I was a non-technical content creator. And that was the basis of our success because you can find the people with the technical skills, you can partner with them, you can hire, you can do all these different sort of things. Um, but to start out, I was an attorney. I quit the practice of law. I started, believe it or not, in 1998, an email newsletter business, right? Like, and we're still doing email newsletters
Yeah.
27 years later. Email will not die. I know. Even on Substack, I see people going, "Well, who's going to continue this email thing?" And I'm like, "You'd be surprised."
Oh yeah, the amount of times I've seen emails dead, it's like, but it's
I
still here.
know.
It's still the number
It's
one
ridiculous.
revenue driver.
It's still here. Um, but yes, and then so that first business was the only one I started that didn't work out. I had no idea what I was doing. The internet was so young that we didn't have courses, uh, books, anything that really can guide you. Like we've got more resources now, so we had to kind of make it up as we went along and figure out what worked. Um, but I ended up starting another email newsletter that talked about the intersection of legal issues with the internet, right? And even though I was a young attorney, not many of the older people who would get all the clients understood that, and therefore I quickly started getting clients. I could have built a successful, larger law firm out of that, but I really didn't enjoy the practice of law. So from there, I said, okay, how can I take what I know and make a lot of money? Because I had to prove I could do that at the time without practicing law. So I turned to real estate. And that worked out well. That was really the intersection of my first use of email content and unique positioning to really accelerate quickly in that business. 5 years later, I realized, I'm only doing it for the money. And that led to the start of Copyblogger, which is what I really wanted to do. So, long story short, that evolution from client services to digital products, even for me, took 7 years. During those early days, everyone's like, well, if I would have started before, it would be so much easier. No, it was just different, right?
Mm,
Now I think there are more resources, there are more opportunities for collaboration because there are more people who understand what's going on and who are drawn to these type of digital businesses. So I think it's a great time to be figuring this stuff out. And more importantly to me, standing on your own economically and not depending on an employer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Brian, you already mentioned a bit of the different ways you can monetize an education business, right? Like coaching, consulting, communities, digital products. But how should someone just starting out like decide which of those monetization models is right for them?
Yeah, like I said, so you have expertise. Generally, the easiest way you're going to make money is through client services, so freelancing or consulting. Um, but what I advocate for, instead of only focusing on getting the next client and not thinking about your business down the road, is to start making observations about the pain points and the language and the issues that are brought up to you by clients, because this is all the stuff that you can productize into, whether it be a group cohort coaching thing, courses, other digital products, right? You need to be able to standardize that pain and your solution to the problem. And the best source from that is when you're working with clients who have those problems and you're getting to interact with them. But even if you try to go straight to, say, coaching or courses, um, just building the audience. I know you guys are advocates for this as well. And this was my whole thesis back in the day, which is you build an audience, you pay attention to them. They'll tell you what they want to buy, not directly, but they'll give you a clue.
Mm.
And then not only are you more likely to build something that's likely to succeed, you've got the built-in market right there to build it from you. This is the opposite of what most people do. They have an idea for a product they think people need, right? Well, rule number one, people buy what they want, not always what they need. So you got to make sure you understand the difference there. And then they go try to find people to buy it. And that's why 90% of startups fail under the old model. So the audience first thing, and that's what's so remarkable about Substack, which is no one even questions that with
Oh.
Substack. That's the process. You build a free audience, then you turn on paid, and then if you're smart, then you're selling even more things beyond the Substack subscription. There are those who, build on Substack and don't turn on paid subscriptions. I find that to be a mistake. I think you probably agree, but the Substack algorithm starts rewarding you when you become a bestseller and all those social proof indications. So it's a smart first tier product to go with Substack. But just think about, okay, what do I sell after that? Right? What's the value add? And so often consulting is on the back end and it's your most expensive thing, even though you might start off with it being on the front end. So there's so much you can do with these different models that I think people generally aren't aware of and that they're kind of fascinated by when they figure out that there is no cookie cutter approach here. There are
Yeah.
so many different ways to do it. And a lot of it is based on your particular expertise, your particular personality, you, right? In the age of AI, it's you. You're the secret ingredient.
Yeah, absolutely. And indeed, there is no one size fits all solution to building your online business. But I think you said it right there. The core of it is listening to your audience and
Yes.
uncovering their pain points and what do they actually want to buy versus what's the thing they might need or you think they need. I think even like then it doesn't matter necessarily if you start out with coaching or a digital product as long as that's like the core of the decision making.
That's a good point. Yeah. One
Yeah.
way or another, you're co-creating is the term I like to use, by listening, whether it be to clients, whether it be to audience members. Um, I've never been a big fan of surveying, even though I think you can do it in a smart way. But if you can watch people in comments and on social in this unscripted, unprompted environment, they will be honest. And
Mm.
that's where you get the best information. So social media is kind of like the best market research environment ever if you can handle the volume of it. So I think you just got to, it's much easier to focus on your own audience than some idea of a broader market that you're not even sure if it's a good fit for you.
I think it's very interesting that you say you're not a fan of surveying because it's indeed one. If you're going to ask your audience what they would want to buy, I have a feeling most of them are actually giving an answer that's not correct. It's not the thing they actually end up buying. But if you ask them about what are your goals and what's currently preventing you from
Yes.
reaching your goals, then they are indirectly telling you this is what I want.
Yeah. I
and
always
I,
tell
I
people never ask what they want to buy because they don't know, or they'll tell you something that um, is non-innovative. So the two sayings I fall back on this, Steve Jobs, it's not the customer's job to know what they want to buy. It's your job. And then, of course, Henry Ford said, if I would have asked people what they wanted, they'd say a faster horse, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
So
so true.
in two sayings there, you've got it. This is the entrepreneur's job, the solopreneur, however you want to think about yourself. Um, to see the pain, to see the goal, to see the problem, and then give them something that perhaps they hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're still uncertain if there's actually demand, do something like a pre order campaign, right? Where the product might not actually exist yet. You haven't started building it yet, but you have really tested if people are willing to pay for it, which is already different than saying, I have this course idea. Do you want to buy it? Because people might say yes because they're polite or in the moment they think they're going to
Yes.
buy it. But then you actually ask for their credit card and it's like crickets, you know? Um, I think, but the core of it is really understanding your audience. What do they struggle with? What results are they after? And then you can like reverse engineer that into an offer, whether it's coaching, consulting, or a digital product.
Yeah. The pre-sale or, just starting the launch process, you always have the option of saying, well, this didn't work, right? And I know that sounds like end of the world failure, but no, it's just, there are no mistakes. There are no failures. There's just data, right? You learn
Hmm.
something important. Um, but between 2007 and 2017, we went on a run where well, starting with me and then others, launched a new product, at least one new every year. It was a major product launch, and not one of them ever failed because we were so dialed into the audience. But I was always of the mindset to avoid arrogance of saying, this may not work, if it doesn't, it's going to be okay. But it always did because we took the audience seriously, but we never took them for granted. And I think that's a fine line to walk. But if you can do it, I think you will succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you do make a mistake in that sense, right? Like you said, that's not the end. That's not failure. That's just data collection. It's like, oh, apparently this didn't work. I've been
Yeah.
there myself for sure,
It
launching a
still
course in my
stings,
previous.
but it's
Yeah.
part of the deal. It's okay.
Yeah, my previous business, I it was a productivity newsletter, and I launched a course on morning routines because I was excited about morning routines back then. Don't ask me why, but I was, and I was like, people need this, so let me create this course. Let me spend weeks building it and then launching it, and crickets. And that's when I realized, maybe I shouldn't make it about me. I should listen to my
Yeah.
audience and like build the things they actually want.
Well, another benefit, of course, with courses like that is if it doesn't work, then you haven't wasted all that time creating it in the first place. But look at it the other way. If it works, you're getting paid to create the course because people signed up and you're delivering it, which is how cohort-based courses work now. Um, which I think is a great way to create a course because not only do you get paid to create it, but you're getting that feedback week after week or lesson after lesson with questions and comments to where on the fly you can make adjustments. And then also next time, if you want to make it into a home study course, then you can make improvements to it for version 2, right? So I think the word iterative is one of the best you can have, whether it be your free content, figuring out what works versus what doesn't. Not everything is going to work. If something falls flat, don't do that anymore. Do the stuff that works better, right? So you develop that iterative or you know im- small improvements over time approach with building your audience in the first place, but it doesn't end there. It translates into every product that you create and other programs that are built upon your initial products.
So Brian, one of the pillars of your further strategy is being location independent, right? I know you're big on traveling and exploring different places around the world, and you would need a business that allows for being location independent. How do you design your businesses in a way that you are time and location independent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So essentially I've been location independent since 2006, but in 2006 my kids were babies, right? So we went through the whole process of raising them, first in Austin, and then we moved to Boulder, Colorado, and that's where they grew up. And except for that trip I took them on around the world, we were basically location independent, but in one country, other than when we would travel. And now my wife and I are have left and are perpetually traveling, which is what, we've been working toward. But it was really a thing about the children have to be out of the house and reasonably self-sufficient. They're still getting money from dad, but it's okay. Um, but yeah, it just has to be something that can be done from anywhere. And most digital businesses can. Most freelance businesses can, unless you are specifically geographically targeting your base. And some people do that. They do the whole what I call the Chamber of Commerce approach, where you're just going to the local businesses and then you end up being more geographically constrained than ever. But when you build around a problem that attracts an audience, those people could be anywhere. And that's the key difference, even at that freelance stage, where you're now able to be anywhere, subject to servicing your clients, time zones, things like that. For example, I lived in Australia for 3 months. If I would have had clients, that would have been difficult, but I didn't on purpose. And,
Mm.
and I was able to work and keep moving forward without any regard for what time other people were awake. So, yeah, to me, location independence is important for a lot of reasons, especially for people my age. Number one, we've got the retirement issue. We've been kind of grew up with this golden years scenario where, well, you just, work for someone else till you're 65, and then you get to travel and live a good life. Well, that turns out not to be true. Even if you can retire at 65, most people sit around, watch TV, and worry about running out of money. Retirement's not that great unless you're really rich, right?
Mm.
And it's ironic. You've probably noticed that a lot of the most successful people are the ones who don't want to retire
Yeah,
because they love
true.
what they do,
Yeah.
right? So, what you have to do is speak to people who are just sick to death of what they've been doing and they're exhausted and worn out and say, there is a better way here. And if you're not going to be able to afford to retire anytime soon, start working towards creating the life you actually want. And to me, that would be location independence or living somewhere with a lower cost of living. It's primarily an economic thing. It's not just a retirement issue. It's getting laid off in your 50s where it's almost impossible to get rehired, especially within 6 months to a year. So you're long-term unemployed. You're now depleting your retirement savings just to stay afloat. And that's why I try to convince people, just make a plan. Don't wait until you're laid off, because then you're going to be under pressure. But people are people. My most successful years, people are always shocked. My first 3 seven-figure businesses were 2007, 2008, 2009, the financial crisis, the Great Recession, because so many people got laid off and they said, okay, well, I've got to figure out how to do this myself. And just like I loved hearing what you had to say, the people that made it and started businesses and are wildly successful in many cases right now did it because their back was against the wall. I'm just saying, maybe start ahead of time because you can see the writing on the wall. I think we're in for a recession, if not a financial crisis in the United States, which is going to trigger around the world. And we gotta figure out how to fend for ourselves as soon as possible. So, and the other thing is the baby boomers are already increasingly retiring overseas because it's so much more affordable. And often, like for example, in Mexico, it's beautiful, uh, it's enjoyable, and as long as you choose the right places, it's much more affordable, easier to get health care. Healthcare is a big issue in the United States. And again, when you get up here in your 50s, you have to start thinking about, not only taking care of yourself, but where can I get the healthcare that I need without going bankrupt?
It's actually an interesting point that you mentioned earlier about not waiting until your back is against the wall to really start your online business. And I mean, so for myself, I was fortunate that when I started my online business, I basically just came out of university. My costs were still pretty low. I had some savings, but it was like, hey, you got 3 months to figure this stuff out, or otherwise you're gonna have to get another job, right? But I
Yeah,
would say I was still in a position to really be able to take that risk. I didn't have a family, I didn't have kids to support, I didn't have a mortgage to pay. But I can imagine that, for a lot of other people, that's not the scenario, right? You have maybe you cannot take that amount of risk. Would you always recommend that if people still have a full-time job, they start doing this on the side, like they start out as a side hustle rather than like saying, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna dive full into this online business thing?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it just takes, it doesn't take a huge amount of discipline. It's just a little bit every day, you know? It doesn't have to be this thing where you're pulling all nighters all the time trying to make this happen.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the groundwork of figuring out who you're going to solve, who you're going to serve, what problem you're going to solve, and then kind of figuring out all these preliminary steps, it takes a little bit of time, and you can do it without the pressure of being laid off or, you know, not having a steady paycheck. So I would definitely encourage that. But just to give you a counterpoint, I would say what you did when you were young was not risky at all.
Hmm.
But staying in a job where you can be let go and become long term unemployed at age 55 is actually the riskiest thing you can do because you were going to survive. You could go get a job, right? You know, it
Hmm.
was always going to be okay. You just got out of university. You were probably still living like a student to a certain
Yeah.
degree, right?
Yeah.
So it's now we have, lifestyles that have carrying costs to them, and we've got family and we've got all these obligations, but it's actually riskier to just say, oh, maybe it'll be okay and I won't lose my job. When statistically, you're more likely, if you leave a job in your 50s, it's not going to be your choice most of the time.
Mm. Is
So,
that because you would say you're in that sense not in control, not in direct control of your main income source?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're not in control at all. I mean, that's just the way it works. And the whole idea of traditional employment is, well, if you don't like this job or they don't like you, you go get another one. But because of the ageism that is just kind of baked in, I don't think it's just the United States, but the United States is certainly, um, celebrates youth a lot, and yet most people don't realize we've got a lot more older people now, and less and fewer younger people, and that's a long term thing. So societally, um, we have to make some adjustments, or it's going to be a complete disaster. The problem for Gen X is they're not going to figure it out right away, right? And we only have 10 years, in the typical job market before they expect us to retire. So it's a risky time. And
Mm.
this is my way of circling back to your original question is why do you do further? This is it. This is the biggest problem I've seen, you know, other than all the other problems we solved with our software and whatnot. This is a major issue. And that's what kind of fueled my sense of purpose when I, had just sold a company, was supposed to be relaxing in France and not worrying about it. And my brain just started kicking, going, wow, this is something. This is not a small problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see it all around me as well, where people are, some of my family members are, or people close to me are, nearing that retirement age, but they're actually like, how am I ever gonna survive? Basically, how am I gonna? I might just be able to pay rent and groceries, but I won't be able to do anything else. And they are actually looking into like supplementing their income with some online coaching and stuff. So I think it's it is a real pain point that you're solving with Further. Um, and actually, I maybe wanted to play this out a little bit. Let's say that someone is still working full time right now. They're working 40 hours a week, and they have 10 hours a week of spare time to be able to dedicate towards this solo business as a side hustle. How would you recommend people to spend those 10 hours in order to get their side hustle off the ground? And I understand, right, there's a lot of nuances and context involved, but just in general.
Yeah. So it really comes down to a process of learning and unlearning. The unlearning is we've carried certain beliefs and assumptions about what life would be like at this age, and those are turning out to be false. And it doesn't do any good to really complain about it. A little bit of complaining, but after that, you have to take action and do something about it. Then there's proactive learning, which is how exactly do you do this? Um, and like I said, compared to when I got started, there's so much guidance. I think some is better than others. There are people out there that maybe aren't as qualified to be teaching certain things, but you guys certainly. I mean, with Further, the way I try to structure it is okay. You know, here's a lesson that teaches you one fundamental thing, and you go through these, and then it's designed for you to then make decisions and take action based on that, right? And I would imagine you're set up kind of the same way with your premium level. But yeah, that is required. I would not just try to wing it in this day and age when there's so many
Mhm.
people who have actually succeeded, like legit people, not people claiming, fake pictures next to a Lamborghini or something. Do they still do that? They used to do that like 20 years ago. It was
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Some people
um,
still do.
yeah. But, people with demonstrated track records have built companies, sold companies, succeeded with their online endeavors, right? Um, and then just follow the advice and take action, right? So first step is unlearn, next is learn, and then the all important cross that line from studying into taking action. So if you can internalize step by step and actually do things instead of saying, well, I'll just take one more course and then I'll feel confident, right? I'm all for education, but it's got to be actionable, and you've got to act. Um, Again, just little by little. My whole process has always been do the most important thing you have to do today. And in 30, 60, 90 days, your life will change, right? It's not about grinding and hustling, right? It's just a consistent action is what most people lack. And you can do it without killing yourself, especially if you're still employed. But you do have to commit to, what is it, 1 hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day that you're going to learn and act in an incremental way. I'm a big fan of the concept from Japan called Kaizen,
Oh, yeah.
incremental improvement, small
Yeah.
steps. Eventually you get there and you're like, wow, everything is different. This is actually working.
But it really is that way because when you're just starting out, and especially if you don't get any help or solid resources that can help you further, it's too overwhelming. It seems like you're climbing Mount Everest. But I think with the right guidance, that could be a coach course, it could be a newsletter, combine that with consistent action, even if it's small steps. Just, take something like Substack. Just if you just started and you created your account, you don't have to blow up. You don't have to get 1,000 followers the next day.
Right.
Just start by discovering the platform. Write your first note. Start your publication. Just dabble in it. Just try it out. Just experiment with it. because over time those tiny steps, they compound into like bigger results. But it really is this process of like learning, messing up here and there. And like you said, like if you do that for 30, 60, 90 days even, you can already make so much progress that when you look back, you're like shocked. But it
Yeah.
is, I think, that combination of the right resources with consistent action that really is key.
Yeah. So my first Substack was in 2023. And usually we were a company that sold tools for WordPress. So we always built our own sites. We had our own email list, what have you. But I had this short-term project. I knew it wasn't going to last forever. And so I was like, okay, let's give Substack a shot. I had known about it. I wasn't sure what I thought of the business model. It seemed kind of interesting to me. But so I didn't use notes. I didn't understand Substack the way I do now. Um, and I still became a Substack bestseller. And I didn't even understand how that was helping me. It was really funny because it wasn't, it's not that it wasn't a serious project. It just wasn't meant to be a long-term thing like Further is to me. So it was that experience, that I brought the fundamentals that I'd been teaching since Copyblogger to Substack, and it works, right? Without
Mm.
even knowing all the platform specific stuff. But that's when I figured out all the platform specific stuff. And then I said, okay, when I bring Further over here, we're going to go at it. And it's awesome. Substack, it really is. I know people are a little worried that they've taken a lot of money. There are going to be changes coming, what have you. That happens. But for now, let me just tell you, if you're out there trying to build a newsletter out on the wild internet, it's tough out there. The Substack ecosystem is designed, people are here to read email newsletters. Notes is designed to push you from, social to subscriber. It's a great ecosystem to really get you going, as long again as you follow the fundamentals that don't really change, because it's human psychology that you're dealing with. It's not technology per se, it's humans. The human element is the important part.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we started on Substack a year and a half ago now. And after like a lot of consideration, because I and my co-founder Sinem, we were writing on Medium for 5+ years,
Ah,
and
yeah,
that's what we used to like build our other newsletters and stuff. And it's been like it's always been a hassle to grow your newsletter, right? It took years for me to get my productivity newsletter to 17,000 subscribers.
yeah,
And on Substack, we've just grown so much faster because the whole platform is designed for newsletter growth. It's designed to help you get more subscribers because that's what their business model depends on as well, right? So I think
yeah.
a platform like Substack it can be overwhelming if you're new because it has a ton of features, but I think in my opinion, it's one of the best platforms for creators and solopreneurs right now.
Yeah, and originally I thought the 10% you had to pay Substack was kind of silly, because I was thinking, well, even if you build your audience there and you start paid there, when you get enough, you would just move off. But one of the things I discovered, of course, is that I like to explain it to people as in Substack takes 10% like a talent agent takes 10%. It's their job to make you more money because you make them money. And
Yeah.
that's how I think the Substack algorithm, and it's rising in whatever category you're in, or bestsellers in whatever category you're in. All of this social proof mechanisms really work, and I think people who don't use Substack's monetization because they don't want to pay 10% are missing the benefits of what your money is getting you. And besides, you should really be making your profit on the next sale, right? So
Yeah. Absolutely. We see our paid tier just as like an entry point offer, basically. And it's the bulk of the money is made through programs, one-on-one coaching or consulting, our membership that we have, our community that we have. But the paid tier is just, the entry point offer. It's like the next step in the funnel,
right.
so to
And
say.
you have to educate people enough to do business with you. So there's a free tier, and then there's the, low price tier. Uh, but the people who are really serious and are most engaged and actually taking learning and action seriously are the ones who are going to go to the next level. And I think that applies across the board. It's not just, online business publications or Substack success, newsletters. It's anything where people are trying to solve a problem, make money, invest, health, wellness, fitness, what have you. It's always this is the classic kind of model, if you will, and I guess we agree. Substack provides a great free and low cost tier to really get your business rolling.
Now, Brian, one last question for you, and I ask this question to everyone on the podcast. If you could go back in time and share 3 lessons or insights with your younger entrepreneurial self, what would they be?
Ah, wow, that's a good question. When I didn't set out to become an entrepreneur, I wanted to become a writer, which is typical of frustrated attorneys. They always want to go write the great American novel or write screenplays or something. And when I set out to do this, I didn't like New York publishing or Hollywood screenwriting because it was gatekeepers. They could tell me no, and I didn't like it. And so this is like 97. And since 94, I've been staring at this computer screen at the internet every night going, you can reach the whole world from here. There's got to be a
Yeah.
way to make money. So that was my drive. But even then, I thought I was just writing in a new medium, no pun intended for the later platform that came along, until I realized, no, you're not a writer in the traditional sense. You're an entrepreneur who can write. You start businesses with content, which attracts audiences, which is a form of marketing, right? And I was so naive when I came to it, but that's how I figured things out. That part I wouldn't change because I think me being completely unschooled in marketing and business, I was a liberal arts major, psychology and sociology. See, I told my mom that stuff would come in handy, and it's perfect for what we actually do. Um, so I think the main thing I would tell myself is to become more financially literate. Because even when I was the CEO of a 65-person company making $12 million a year, I had to rely on other people, our CFO, outside people. We never took investments, so I avoided that. But I would have become more financially literate at a younger age because I think that helps immensely. It's not required. Technically, all that's required is that you make more money than you spend. That
Mm,
was my financial plan, right? What? Our expenses are up? Okay, make more money.
Take more. Yeah. Good
Do another
solution.
promotion, right? We got to sell something.
Yeah.
um, that is the key. Learning how to sell and realizing that it's not a dirty word is something I had to figure out. And again, I did. Um, so I wouldn't change that either. It's really, I think I wasn't business or financially literate, but because I was successful making money, I pushed that off, right? I relied on other people. And sometimes I think I made bad decisions because I didn't fully understand that aspect of things. So that jumps out to me as the one thing I would change. Otherwise, I can't complain. I've been very blessed with the 27-year journey now that I've been on.
Brian, where should people go if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, the main homepage for Further is further.net. The Substack is news.further.net, but there is a Substack form on further.net, so you can sign up there. I have a bio on the About page that you can read about all my glorious third person exploits, which of course I wrote myself.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's basically if you understand the mission of Further, which is for people basically in their 50s to realize you've got a lot of time left. It's not time to hang it up. It's time to shift into a new gear, maybe even become a new version of yourself. That's really what we're about. And I'm an advocate of doing that through entrepreneurship, specifically of the digital variety, because there's no more pressing problem right now than economic issues for most people in the current time. So that's what I would say. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, stop by. We're friends with these guys, so you'll get a congruent experience.
We'll link to your website and the Further newsletter, the Substack, in the show notes so people can check it out and subscribe, which I highly recommend. Brian, it was truly a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for sharing all your lessons and insights here with us today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.